I personally think that the universe wants life, and I don't think we're going to be the only time that life has occurred. Jacques Monod died before this happened, but now we know many planets around many nearby stars.
Exoplanets, you're right.
Yes,
you're right.
And I'm certain that they're going to life is going to be discovered on nearby planets, maybe in your lifetime, perhaps not in my lifetime.
But you know, what I don't understand is Jacques Monod, because I'm
Why such nihilism?
I'm deeply against Jacques Monod.
Was he in the Trente Glorieuses when things were going so well?
He was already
too much affluence, perhaps.
He was in the Trente Glorieuses, but he was a bit later when he wrote his main works. But he was very good in genetic medicine. He was really
a Nobel
great,
Prize.
Yeah.
But why this nihilism? Why this idea that everything is purposeless? I think it's very bad. I know it's fashionable. It was fashionable. And the fashion now is to say that human beings are obsolete. People don't have children anymore. Why? Because we're going to be replaced by artificial intelligence.
We are on the same wavelength.
I disagree.
It's bullshit, and my next book will be about that. About these things that, of course, we're not going to be replaced.
It's a very timely topic, because I think there is that the negative view that Jacques Monod expressed has only become more intense, because when Jacques Monod said that, France was still having children. People were still having children. People don't have children anymore, in part because it doesn't seem to be any purpose, there doesn't seem to be any future.
But you know what I often say?
Yes.
Is people say that human beings are the more complex being, and I said also the more complexed. That's what
it's of course more possible failure modes. Of course,
exactly.
Yeah, too much good French wine is bad. having how do you say un desafio? What is that? Having problems. I mean, too much affluence is very bad. People get depressed. They think life is purposeless. You know, if there isn't that much wonderful food, if things aren't so easy, people have a purpose. Purpose is to survive and to feed their children, and that gives life a tremendous amount of meaning. It's only when you're too well off and you think, there's no purpose, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Well, why doesn't he go to the Louvre and look at the great art there, for example? I mean,
I know.
Humanity has done great things.
Don't tell me that. I agree. I know you.
He has a Nobel Prize in molecular biology, and he says life is purposeless. The purpose is to understand.
I feel the same.
And he wanted to understand life. Now, Elon Musk is worried about this. The real reason for his company, SpaceX, is not to he doesn't care about making money. He just views it as a way to be able to do more of the things he wants to do. What he wants to do is to save humanity, because it is possible that we will destroy this planet. You know, it could be a nuclear war, it could be another COVID that kills everyone. There are lots of ways, contaminating the water. So he thinks if we want the human race to survive, it would be good to have people on Mars, in lots of places. So then there's more chance that life will survive.
Yeah, I get it. Of course.
And he has friends who say, you're racist. Why do you prefer human beings? What's wrong with a life form based on silicon instead of carbon? You know? As he says, if I'm a racist in this sense of being in favor of humanity, that's fine. I am, you know?
Yeah.
So there's this tremendously negative attitude now, and I don't know why it is. Some societies people are too well off, perhaps. That may lead to this negativity.
I would like to come back a little bit with time and through Jacques Monod, but not talking about him anymore. Just saying that even at his time, but even if it was discovered a little bit after,
the purpose of life is to understand the universe.
We could say that.
To understand reality, the fundamental nature of reality.
Or at least we could say the very fact that we are able to understand the universe or part of the universe, and we have this desire, is already giving a meaning that is intrinsic to the universe itself.
Absolutely. Human curiosity and the urge to explore the rest of the universe.
But about time, I wanted to say something else. It's just that at one moment, and he was living at that time where there was this idea that on one side there was life, and life of course is giving meanings because it's growing and growing, it does something, openness, etc., élan vital and so on. But the rest of the universe, which is the majority of the universe, like what we see around, is actually just completely dead, there is nothing, etc., etc. It's what I'm talking about, the representation. I'm not finished. Don't worry, Gregory.
Okay.
Don't worry.
I'm listening.
But now we know through
Nucleosynthesis.
synthesis, that actually there is a process of openness, like of evolution inside the material world itself. So when you have electrostatic repulsion from hydrogen, for atom of hydrogen, there is a process that doing something that is not, and poof, it becomes helium, and it creates something like in the evolution of life, and it became heavier and heavier, heavier atoms. And after, in fact, there is a continuity with molecules and macromolecules, and after things are more complex. Well, with him, he thought there was a complete wall between the world that will be completely dead, that will surrounded the living world, that is just an exception, random exception, and we know it's not actually true, that. But before we finish, because we're almost finished, but the great sad Tazi told me that we are almost finished. But
the quest for meaning and truth and understanding isn't finished.
Oh, that's not finished at all. That will never.
Hopefully never.
I hope.
Yes.
But when we are talking about the infinite of time, we have, I think, I'm afraid we have talked about bits of time, like infinity inside time. But if we think about time, like, is there an end of time, or the time is just like going and going?
Is there a beginning
going,
of time? Is
and
there
the
an
beginning,
end of time?
exactly the end. So do you believe basically in the beginning, like we said, the Big Bang? And after something that will be like expansion, but it becomes the expansion of death, because at the end it's like so cold you don't call it cold anymore because it's trillions of years, or that it is like a respiration, like the Nobel Prize of Physics said. I don't remember his name. Sad, but you know everything. What is his name already?
That's a cyclic
that I
universe.
love.
First it expands, then it contracts,
Yeah,
then
the
it bounces.
physicist that I love the more, that also was interested in mind. He wrote The Emperor's New Mind.
Penrose?
Roger Penrose. He has very interesting theories about the fact that it's kind of like an eternal process, and when you think it's the beginning of the universe, it's actually not the beginning of the universe. It's just the fact that we can't see it because it's the Planck origin, you know.
Perhaps, or you had a big crunch, a previous
And
universe
after a big
collapsed,
crunch,
and then it
exactly.
bounces, and you get a new.
So what about that? What do you think about that?
Well, I think these cosmological theories are extremely speculative. The evidence.
Sure, it's what we're doing here.
Fred Hoyle is doing ontology, thought that the steady state universe would be nice, especially because if the universe is created, you start asking, is there a creator?
Sure.
Right? So he preferred to make a model of a universe that would have always existed and will always exist. And the only problem is that the evidence from observational astronomy is rather strong that there was a beginning and that there was an explosion. And Fred Hoyle mocked it on radio in the UK, calling it the Big Bang. And this name caught on.
And he was mocking it, and it became the very well, to contradict what you wanted to say when he was laughing. I know that the story, that's completely crazy.
Right. But cosmological theories are enormously speculative, and they don't talk to the public that way. They don't say that. But the truth is they're based on lots of assumptions, and they change as a function of time. And I think an honest presentation would be based on the current physics we know. Maybe it looks this way, but this is just one possible model.
And because what you say is very interesting, because I like words, as you know, and you say, it looks his way. So on a count point of view, of course it looks its way because it's a phenomenon, and phenomenon is what actually appears. And so, of course, we can think only about what looks this way.
Yeah, but Jacques Monod is not the only one who expresses sentiments like this. There's a little book called something like The First 10 Minutes or The First 10 Seconds by a fine high-energy physicist called Steven Weinberg, an American. And he says something like, the more we know, the more meaningless it all seems, or something like that. Yeah, well, that's a psychological problem. He should get a better psychiatrist, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. So the idea of
I prefer Elan Vital, frankly.
Yeah.
And you can look at George Bernard Shaw speculating about transhumanism. Man and Superman, that play has a chapter called Don Juan in Hell, which is a dream that takes place in hell. And they're talking about all of these topics. And then he has a very long play called Back to Methuselah, which is something like, I don't know, 2 million years of human evolution, from the protoplasmic slime to superhumans. And I think it's interesting to take a look at these plays. In some ways they look very primitive, and in other ways they look more imaginative. It's more in tune with Bergson, because Bergson was a contemporary of Shaw's, and they were both reacting to Darwin's theories, which had been published only a short time before, that Shaw discusses. He discusses Bergson, talks about, I think he says life force. That's the translation he uses for Elan Vital.
So can we make, before we end, like some kind of a temporary conclusion about time? Is it infinite or is it not? We could say that it's infinite. I think it's where we were...
I don't like this vision of the heat death of the universe due to the second law. We may find ways to avoid it or to become immaterial.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in life.
I like the idea.
And Freeman Dyson has a discussion of how you could use different physical mechanisms for life
it's
to continue.
infinite in all directions.
Maybe he refers to it there.
Yeah, in that wonderful book that we love together. We love this book. Yeah, we said yesterday. But yeah, I think it's the conclusion that we reach for now is that time is infinite.
Let's hope so.
But maybe not only that. Maybe more than that. That actually time is the very proof of infinity. That infinity exists. It's what at least it's my view. That time is actually the proof of infinity. It's like the expression of infinity. The only way we have to say, oh, that proves that things are infinite. Because if things were finite, what I said at the beginning, like already there completely, because finite means completely there, there will be no point for something to even move, to go beyond.
But
and we have the proof that
we
goes
have creative
beyond.
evolution.
Yeah, and so when we are, we human beings, we are just with our desire to know that what we don't already know, basically, we are the living proof of the expression, maybe the most subtle expression of time with our creativity. So it's actually the expression of our infinity, the fact that we are not content with what will look finite with us, our organism and our material being, things like that.
Well, look at the creation of artificial intelligence. That's an amazing achievement. It's a risk also, but it's an amazing achievement. Maybe we're giving birth to a new life form that will replace us. But if so, it's a triumph for humanity to create a superior form of life, perhaps. At any rate, it's an amazing moment to be alive. Jacques Monod probably would have found it fascinating.